Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like this video, please take a moment to leave a comment. Thank you. I thought I would join in on Paddy Potato Peeler's Open Tag event on 3 knives that you haven't carried in the last 6 months, a flashlight that you do carry, and your watch, your favorite watch. I've seen a couple other videos on it. It looks like fun, so I thought I would join in on it also. And now the first thing you see here is there's a lot more than 3 knives showing here. And that's been the case with every other video I've seen on this too. So I figured I could cheat as well. And what I have done is I am showing you a knife that I used to carry, but I'm not carrying anymore, and the knife that replaced it. Now, before I get into talking about the knives, the flashlight, and the watch, I want to talk about one of my philosophies on my channel. If you've ever noticed, most of my videos launch somewhere around either 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Central Time in the United States. Which means they launch sometime in Europe, either around 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. Over there, 1700 or 1800 hours. And I do that for a reason. I'm not sure how it happened, but it seems like a lot of people in Europe subscribe to my channel. And I figured what I was going to do is I'm going to launch my videos at a time where both people in the United States and the people in Europe would be able to see them roughly, on the same day. If I were to be launching these things at, say, 1800 hours my time, it would be midnight in Europe, and the folks who would see it the next day. By doing it at 10 o'clock Central Time in the United States, it means the folks on the West Coast in the U.S., folks out in California, they see it at 8 a.m. The folks in New York, they see it at 11 a.m. And the people over in Europe, they're seeing it around 4 p.m. or 1600 hours. And that's why I set my videos up as for the time that they're actually displaying. And it even works for the troops over in Afghanistan. They're getting it at the very end of the day when they'd be getting ready for the night shift or something like that. So just around bedtime they would see it. I'm sorry for the people in Pago. It's hitting you in the middle of the night, but I'm trying to get my videos to show for my subscribers, the largest fan base that I have. And it really does seem like more and more of the people who actually tune into my videos are actually in Europe. I'm kind of surprised, but I'm also happy, and so that's why the videos launch when they do. If this is a big deal to you or not, I'd love to hear from you. With all that out of the way, let me move on and talk about the 3 knives, the flashlight, and the watch. Now, most of the time when people do this video, they talk about the knives first, and then they go on to the flashlight, and then to the watch. I'm going to do that in reverse order, and the main reason I'm doing that is because I haven't carried or used a watch in years, at least 10 or 15 years. I've been using my iPhone. Before that, I used whatever other cell phone I had. It had a clock on it, so I just used that as a pocket watch, and I've been doing that for at least 10 or 15 years. My phone has been my watch, and I find it very useful to do that. I would also like to mention that even as a very young kid, I worked very hard at being able to actually tell the time by just looking at the sun, and I'm really pretty good at being able to look up at the sun in the sky and getting you within 15 or 20 minutes to the actual time of day, regardless of the time of year or anything, as long as I'm in my local area. And I basically trained myself to do that by doing many of the things that they talk about in scouting and stuff, because watches are unreliable. Sometimes they die, and so you should know how to tell time by looking at the sky. Regrettably, I'm not that good at telling what time it is at night as I used to be. 20 or 30 years ago, I would have been able to tell you by looking at the stars if it was 2 a.m. or if it was 3 a.m. Can't do that anymore, but I'm still pretty accurate by looking at the sun and getting you within 15 or 20 minutes of what time of day it is. So even when I had a watch on my wrist, I could do that, and it was a game I would play with myself. I would look at the sky, say, looks like it's about 2:20, and then I would look at my watch to see how close I was, and that's what I've done. I've done that for a long time, and I even still do that today, but now I look at my smartphone after I've checked the sky. So that's me and my watch, but seeing how I'm not very good at telling the time of day at night anymore, simply because I live in an urban environment, and all the light on the ground and everything just makes it so it's almost impossible to see the stars. I probably should consider getting a pocket watch, because there's going to come a time when I'm going to need to know what time it is at night, and my iPhone is not going to be there for me. Okay, let's talk flashlights. I have this one. If you see here, $1.99 from Bailey's. We're talking really cheap, inexpensive flashlight. Nothing special about it. No name brand or anything. Made in China. Uses 3 AAA batteries. And it's got a bunch of LED lights up front. I don't know how many lumens they said it was. Whatever they said, it was probably a lie. You see them there. What? I'm not even going to try and count them. But bright enough. Let's cover that one up too. You see, it's bright enough. You can see everything with it. I can light up my entire walkway, so I can see about 50, 60 feet ahead of me. Oops. I can see a good 60 feet ahead of me with no problem, which is more than enough distance. Nothing fancy about this flashlight at all. It's just click on and click off. 3 AAA batteries, and I carry it in my bag. It's always with me, but there's nothing special about it, nothing fancy, no brand name, nothing like that. It's not the one I normally use, though. These are the ones I use most often, and if you notice, they're little bike lights. I've got a couple other different varieties of them, but these are lights that hook onto the handlebars of your bicycle, and these are the ones I tend to grab most often because they're the ones that are the most handy for me. This is buried more in my bag. These are in a side pocket in my bag because I ride a bike a lot, and so they're always there. I've got a red one. Let's see, can I see? Nice red light. It'll strobe, and it'll strobe, and it'll turn off, and you can see it about 2 blocks, so that comes out to about a quarter mile away. So a car's not going to hit me, or hopefully won't hit me, but that's what it's for. So you can see the light at least a quarter mile away. I would say the red one lights up a distance of about 16 feet for me, and then I have the white one. It also strobes, not nearly as bright as this light because it's just got 2 little LEDs in the front. Let me turn that up. If you can see it there, just 2 little LEDs in front, but again, you can see it a distance away of about a quarter mile, maybe even more, and you see it'll strobe, and it will strobe. And that's really what it is. When I'm riding my bike, it's usually set at this strobe, so that a car will see me more. It will be more likely to see me. This is the one I usually grab most often, simply because it's good enough. I mean, I can see about 16, 20 feet with it, which is more than enough distance usually. And it's good enough to look, for stuff that you drop in a car or something like that. So that's what these are for. They're really for my bike, but they're the lights I usually grab most often. Cool thing about it is, because of the way they're set, you can actually strap this onto things. I've also got one of those funky lights that hooks onto the bill of a hat. It's laying around here somewhere. I don't use that one very often though. So far this has probably been a disappointment. I don't really carry a watch, and my lights that I have are just cheapo flashlights. There's nothing really fancy about it. So hopefully the knives will save this video. And I'm going to start right back here with this one, which is a Camilla's Cub Scout knife. I was using this one. I usually carry 3 to 4 pocket knives, usually 3 knives on me and 1 in my bag. This knife I started carrying as an extra knife. Nice little Camilla's Cub Scout knife. And the reason I was carrying it is just to see how well it functioned. And so it was basically a test knife. I finished the testing on it, and so I put it aside. Works really nice. It's a nice little Cub Scout knife. I will be doing a video on how well this knife performed as a EDC knife. And this knife I just recently replaced with this knife here, which is a little Rough Rider toothpick in the Copperstone series, because now I'm testing this knife to see how well it works. So I went from a Cub Scout knife, a 3-tool Cub Scout knife, to a very small 3-inch tiny toothpick, and I'm just testing this knife. And so this knife will eventually disappear in my collection too, and I'll move back to the knives that I normally carry in my collection. Now, if you notice all the way in the back here, there is a large toothpick by Rough Rider. I've been carrying this knife for about a year. It replaced another large toothpick by Rough Rider, and that's still in my collection. I'm not going to bring out the other toothpick that it replaced because it basically looks the same as this one. So that leaves us with the 3 other knives, and these are the 3 knives that were EDCs at one time but got replaced by another EDC. And first up is the Spartan Light in Hunter Green scales. I replaced the scales, swapped them out. It's got the plus scales, so it has an ink pen here. You notice it also has the toothpick for your eyeglasses on there, and the other things on it is rather just as typical Spartan. You've got your can opener, you've got your screwdriver cap lifter, in-mounted Phillips screwdriver, and your 2 blades, the small blade and the large blade. And the other tool you have on it is this light. I thought the light was a good idea, but the light was always coming on in my pocket. The battery would drain, and I was just wasting money replacing the batteries in this thing, and it was driving me nuts. And so the other problem I had with it is I really could have used a pair of scissors. So as much as I liked the fact that this only had the 3 layers and the in-mounted Phillips screwdriver, which is what I really wanted with it, I decided to trade this in for the Explorer. For those who are not familiar, the Explorer has a pair of scissors added to the mix, and instead of a flashlight, it has a magnifying glass. I find I use the magnifying glass a lot more than I ever used a flashlight on there, so I'm glad I got rid of that. I swapped out the standard scales for plus scales, so I still have my ink pen, which I really need and use quite often, and then your toothpick and tweezers, and again the little screwdriver for the eyeglasses. Now this one used to be being carried in my pocket, but it has since moved over to my backpack, and it's in my backpack because I decided to start carrying another knife in my pocket, and this is a little bit of weight, so I moved on and put the Explorer in my backpack, so it is with me all the time. It's just not riding in my pocket. Now, interesting enough, we have a Midnight Manager here. It's one of the older ones that has a little red light on it. It's got the ink pen. Come on, let's close the ink pen. No toothpick or tweezers because of the tools being replaced with the light and the ink pen. But otherwise, you've got your scissors, a file with the screwdriver tip, blade, small Phillips screwdriver, and I think that's all the tools. Yeah, did I bring out the scissors? And scissors. So this is the Midnight Manager. That's what I'm carrying now. But earlier I was carrying just the Signature. Now the Signature is a smaller pen. It's just a classic SD with an ink pen added in place of the toothpick normally. But I swapped out the toothpick for, it normally has tweezers, but I swapped out the tweezers for the toothpick because I use the toothpick more than I use the tweezers. Plus I have tweezers in the Explorer anyway. And it's interesting because I swapped this knife out for the Midnight Manager, but then when the ink pen ran dry on this, I went and grabbed the Midnight Manager, and so I ended up using the Midnight Manager. I have since replaced the ink pen on here, and I just haven't gotten around to swapping it back around. But eventually this pen will end up taking over this pen, but currently I'm still carrying this one. Now that I've taken it off my keychain, chances are this will end up back on the keychain and this one will end up back on the wall. Confusing? It is to me. And that brings us to these two knives up front here. The Dragonfly 2 replaced the Caracara, or Caracara, however you want to pronounce it, the bird Caracara. I picked this one up because I really just wanted to find out what Spydercos were all about. I went and grabbed the bird because it was a lot cheaper than like a Delica or a paramilitary. And I used it for about 2 or 3 weeks. I do like it. If you can tell, I swapped the pocket clip around on it so I could carry it in a different pocket and everything. Got really good at flipping it open and everything. I'm not doing it on camera because I'm sitting down and I don't have a lot of room. But I really do like the Caracara. But the problem is it's pretty heavy in the pocket. And I thought I needed a 3-inch blade. But after a little bit, I realized I really don't need a 3-inch blade. And this thing weighs quite a bit. And basically, shortly after picking this up, I went ahead and ordered the Dragonfly 2 in the Zome green scales, the FRN scales, and VG10. And if you've looked around, you've probably seen that there's quite a few. I've done at least 2 videos on this knife already because I just fell in love with this knife. I mean, it works really good for me as an EDC knife. And I replaced the Caracara with this, thinking I would probably just carry this for a week or so, but ever since I put it in my pocket, this is the first knife I grab in the morning and throw in my pocket. I do not leave home without it. I just love this knife. And I'm already looking at picking up another Dragonfly 2 just in the event that I need a different one. This is just a great knife, and I really dig it. I know a lot of people are not crazy about Spydercos, and I know there's other people who just love them and rave about them all the time. I do not see myself picking up any more Spydercos, but I can see myself picking up another Dragonfly 2, maybe even 2 or 3 Dragonfly 2s, because I really like this knife. But as far as becoming a Dragonfly or a Spyderco collector, ain't gonna happen. I really love my traditional knives, but I do see this knife is very useful, and I also see it as traditional enough for me that I can live with it in my pocket. And so there you have it. That's my three knives that I no longer carry, and the knives that replaced them, and plus these two here, which are just test knives that I've been working on. And this one will be gone in a month. Who knows what it'll be replaced by.
Hey, don't blame me for this video. This is Paddy Potato Peeler's idea. I just went along with it. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Knife Chats, and if you did, please like and share it with your friends. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.